Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Takilla Combs, Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Doing well. My life is definitely unorganized, and I think I'm right. I'm talking to the right person today because you are a professional organizer and you do more than just help people with their home and declutter it, but it's the aspect of the mental as well. Because our world is so hectic and so busy, you cannot turn on your phone or even start your day without being berated by something happening in life or in the world. And I know today's conversation is going to be touching base or touching home for a lot of people, because organization might be something that they allow in their life to take a back burner. But if we would allow that to be that front burner, that first priority thing, just imagine how clear their focus can be, or clear their mind can be. Their path is basically the runway for wherever destination they want to go. But sometimes those destinations in life are going to be blocked, they're going to be obstructed. And we're going to be learning today how to create a clear path for our destiny. If you could, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help people?
Yeah. My name is Takilla Combs. I'm a professional organizer. I'm the life organizing strategist, and I help people to rid their lives of the clutter and chaos that pushes us away from peace. It pushes us away from productivity and purpose. So the goal is to create a space, create a schedule, a calendar, a life of organization. So I call it the organized life. And that's what we create in my business, in my workshops, and on my podcast. It's all about creating the organized life, not just your physical space, which is where I started, organizing physical space, but I quickly realized it's more than just your physical space.
So when we start to look at someone's life, I'm sure they're maybe not born into just being a chaotic mess. Like, okay, my life is just a mess. I have all of these things going for me. It seems like it takes some time. It's very similar to moving into a home for the first time. You have a lot of space. You have a lot of room. And I remember even when I moved into my home and I was like, oh, I got all this space. Look at that corner. Look at this corner. Before you know, all the corners are filled. You're like, I need more corners to fill. So you get a bigger house, a bigger home, just a bigger lifestyle. And from there, you just give yourself more stuff. And now the idea of stuff and materialism is one aspect, but the same thing can be true with your day. We have 24 hours in a day. But most people, they try to maximize that time as much as they can. But sometimes the time is not maximized fully to the things that they should be doing that are productive for themselves. Think of scrolling on their phones or talking to people who might not be significant, comments and things like that in chat rooms. So there's a lot of wasted time in our day, and I'm sure there's a lot of wasted space in people's lives. How do you help people prioritize what is for them?
Well, the first thing we got to do is become self-aware. In order for us to create where we want to go and figure out where we want to go, who we want to be, we have to look at where we are and be self-aware with that. You can't create a path, or you can't create a strategy, a plan, systems if you don't know where you are. So the first thing we have to do is look at where we are. Yes, I don't like where I am. I see it. I'm acknowledging it. And then now, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? And even if you don't know exactly what it is that you want, you know that this isn't what I want. And I need some help in creating that life that I can envision, but don't know how to get to the destination.
Well, I'm sure you had to see that this was an issue. I know you said early on that you started off in the physical space, and I think it's easy to conceptualize, hey, people have a messy home. Let me help them declutter, let me help them make things clear. For example, my mom, she loves to buy stuff from Amazon. So she will just have so it must be a mom thing right now with this generation of moms. And she has, I'm talking about like her house is an Amazon warehouse. So if you need something, like if you're not feeling well, you need a heating pad, she has it. She goes, it's somewhere in one of these boxes.
That's
so
right.
She can go and she can get whatever you need without you having to go on Amazon yourself to get it. She's prepared for every situation.
Yeah.
But it causes a lot of chaos in the home A
Yes.
dining room that was once clean is now full of Amazon boxes that she would maybe once wanted to return. And we can trickle down this idea of the mindset now of before everything was easy, it was clean, it was unobstructed, where you can just walk into the dining room, into the home. And now it's almost like you're shimmying through everything. And we have to ask ourselves, what does that do to the mind? What does that do to a person in their space, or to their space when their space is very chaotic? I'm sure it doesn't make them more productive having a crazy space. So, what's the alternative?
So I just want to say something really funny.
Mm-hmm.
I was sitting next to my mom one day, and her phone, her Ring doorbell goes off, and it's, of course, Amazon. And she's like, Amazon is always bringing stuff to my house. I'm like, girl, you keep ordering stuff. What are you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
She's saying it like they doing it to her. No, you doing it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my mom she loves Amazon. Unfortunately, my parents are the total opposite of me, which is probably the reason I turned out the way that I did. But as far as the mental aspect of the clutter and chaos that we live in, we are living in materialistic society, consumeristic society, and we don't realize how much those things are affecting us mentally, emotionally, physically, financially. So I have an acronym that I use. I did not create the acronym. I've done my research. I don't know who created it. A lot of people use it, but it's called systems. And it says save you space, time, energy, and money. When you get organized, you save in all four of those areas: space, time, energy, and money. And if you're lacking in one of those areas, we got to look at what's not working and see what we can tweak to make sure that you begin to save in space, time, energy, and money. What happens when you're being depleted in your space? It's shrinking, right? Your space, your physical space starts to feel like it's shrinking. It's not really, but it feels that way. Your mind, your money starts to shrink because you're spending money on things that you don't really need. Those $5 Temu and Shein and TikTok toys that you guys are buying, it really does take away from you financially over time, and it does mess up your space. And what happens is mentally, we start to, our brain starts to get clouded. We are rushing. We are having decision fatigue because instead of one of my clients, I told her, instead of spending your time at the thrift store, she thought that going to the thrift store and giving them one thing and buying three was okay. Instead of doing that, spend your time managing your schedule, looking at what it is that's happening this week. How can I eliminate some things that aren't benefiting my life? And how can I say yes to some things that are, like organizing my nightstand, organizing my closet, right? Instead of adding to the mess, we need to figure out what can actually benefit our life. Because mentally, we get drained. And then when we get drained mentally, it really drains us emotionally. We have a hard time spiritually, financially. So that mental tug of war that we go through, it really does hurt us. It hurts our children. It hurts our work. I was just having a conversation yesterday. People don't realize that some people are very organized at work, and they're home. They come home, they're super chaotic. They're super cluttered, very inefficient. They just cannot get things done at home because it's cluttered and chaos, right? It's filled with clutter and chaos. If you manage your home the way that you did your work, you would see a drastic shift in your life because you'll be able to be the same productive. You'll be able to get the laundry done. You'll be able to do meal prep. You'll be able to have the kids pack their lunch the night before, get out the door like it's a breeze, right? So mentally, we drain ourselves because we're not putting things in place to help us have that peace and productivity that we really need and desire.
I like the idea of how sometimes we don't, like, we're unaware of, like, we can be organized in one spot and then not the other spot, because the spots that maybe are the most important to us are clean, or they're organized, or they're tidy. But then sometimes it's those areas that maybe might seem insignificant can really cause the ache. It can cause the burden. For example, you don't necessarily feel anything throughout your day if everything is good. But the moment you like pull a muscle in your neck or something, or your back or your leg, it's just one little muscle, but it can ruin your whole entire day. It's
You
amazing.
start walking different and like it makes one this is the only thing that started hurting, but now you're hurting over here because you're leaning and yeah, so that's totally true.
And it's so interesting how we fall into this idea of materialism and consumerism because we're not born and demanding our Louis Vuitton onesies or to have a Prada bag when we were 2 years old. It's something that we grow accustomed to. Of course, society might say what we need and what we don't need. And at some point, we develop a lifestyle and we say that this is the lifestyle that we would like to have. So it could be very luxurious or it could be very minimalistic. And maybe that lifestyle is going to be dependent on your parents. It could be dependent on your environment, your schooling, your friends. But at the end of the day, most people, they get a say in their life. They get to say what they want to wear. Most likely, they can wake up in the morning. They get to say, okay, I'm going to go to my closet and I'm going to make a choice to what I'm going to wear. And from there, I'm going to go out throughout my whole day. Not everyone's going to wake up in the morning. They're going to have no options of what to wear, especially here in America. And they have a wide variety to choose from. And I find if you are like Steve Jobs, for example, he wore just his black turtleneck and his jeans and he had his sneakers and that was
Yeah.
Steve Jobs. And there's a lot of people like that today, especially the high functioning people. But everyone else, they need 3 outfits a day. So Monday they have 3 outfits, Tuesday same thing, Thursday, and before you know it, their closet is full. My wife's closet is crazy. I don't understand how she does it, but she does
Yeah.
it really well. Like she has too much clothes. And even though I tell her to declutter, even though she gets rid of things, it doesn't take long for it all to come
Mm-mm,
trickling back.
mm-mm.
And we have to ask ourselves the discipline aspect where we know we do the decluttering work, we do the organization work, and then it just seems like after a while things start to unravel. How can people start to make the idea of getting rid of this materialistic mindset or the consumer mindset more than just a moment? Because everyone can start a New Year's resolution, for example. They can start strong, but then it starts to phase out and fizz out toward maybe 3, 4, 5 months because now they're going back to their old habits, their old routines. How do you get down to the root of helping people with the root cause? Because sometimes people can just be shopaholics because it makes them feel good.
Well, you giving them grace 3, 4, 5 months is usually even sooner than that. But I talk to my clients about you got to choose, you got to make a choice. Do you want your space or do you want the stuff? Right? The law of reciprocity stands. You cannot continue to bring things in without releasing things. Just think about your body. You take things in and you release them, hopefully every day. Right. So if we're continuing to bring things in, like we talked about before, your space starts to shrink, right? Our body starts to swell if we don't let release, right? So you have to, if you're going to bring things in, you have to release things. One of the things I taught my children super early, and I talk to my clients about this, especially when we're teaching and training their kids on how to create the organized life. If you like around school time, around Christmas, when it's time to get ready for school, Christmas, birthdays, all of these holidays, okay, you guys, what are we going to get rid of? Because we got a lot of new things coming in. So we got to get rid of some stuff so we can make space. So I taught my kids that so early. It was always exciting because they knew they were going to bless somebody else with something that they had they had no more use for, or they weren't using it. They didn't like it anymore. So let's bless somebody else with it. Okay. So my kids now, they just automatically put things by the door in a bag and like, Mom, this can go to donations. I don't want it anymore. Right. My younger son, he's been doing a lot of shopping. He's 20 and he's like bringing stuff in. And all of a sudden it's a bag at the front door because he doesn't want these clothes anymore. He has a new style or whatever the case may be. But we got to make that choice on whether I want my space or whether I want the stuff. I have these purging provoking questions where when we're looking at these items that we are thinking about getting rid of, we got to ask ourselves the hard questions. Have I used it in the last year? Do I think I'll use it in the next year, 6 months? Could somebody else benefit from this item? This is one of the my favorites, and the guys that started the minimalist movement, maybe about 10, 15, 20 years ago. The minimalist movement, that one of their quotes is, if you can get rid of it in less than 20 minutes, if you can replace it for in less than 20 minutes for less than $20, can you consider getting rid of it? Right? That can be some of those notebooks we got sitting around, some of those ink pens. Some people have a lot of ink pens. It could be a plethora of things, right? A shirt, anything. But we got to just start making better decisions and look at the future that we want to create. You can't create the new future with the old stuff. So how do we have a different mentality? How we have a different perspective based on what it is that we want to create, the life we want to create? What is it that I want to live into? How do I create this new life? What do I want to release, right? In order to bring peace, right? So we're talking about the law of reciprocity. It doesn't have to be stuff. Even though we're releasing stuff, that doesn't mean that we need to bring more stuff into our life. We're bringing peace. We're bringing productivity. We are living towards our purpose. So to answer your question, it's a matter of choosing, right? Releasing and bringing something in that actually is benefiting your life, whether it's a great schedule, something that's pushing you towards purpose, some coaching. So stop buying purses and start buying personal development, buying books or something like that.
And you have to be careful with books too. So, because you can get a whole bunch of books. I have this
And
over
don't read
here, a
them.
bunch of books over there, bunch of books over there. They're all read, but the idea is at
And
some
most people
point it's
don't read
like,
all of them. Yeah.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I like audiobooks or like ebooks and things like that because it's just a file that you can have on your phone or your computer. It's pretty simple, but there is a magic. I will say this: there is a magic about just reading a book, touching the feel, the pages, the smell. It's not for everybody, so you have to ask yourself: are you one of those people?
Yeah.
I remember when I started my whole personal development journey. I was 28, and it was like 2016. And I said, I don't want an audiobook. I don't want a Kindle book. I want a real book. And, my apartment was pristine. I'm talking about it was clean. And I had my books, and I would have just one book I would take. And I said, okay, this is the book I'm going to read. I put it on my nightstand every night from 7 to 11. I would read. And this is single life, no kids. So very structured, very easy. And it was so funny. People will come over. Why is your place so clean? Why is your house so clean? And I'm just asking myself, why is yours not? And in my head, it's want to be combative about this. Like, okay, it was just what I wanted, right? It just helped me focus. I would come home. I never left a dish in the sink. Everything was just there. Everything was good. It was very routine, very structured, simplified to an extent, and it was nice. But then life starts to happen, right? You get a spouse, you get kids, and then now all of a sudden, that nice, calm life that you want to have or you were living starts to get more chaotic. Your kids are leaving around cars and teddy bears. They're throwing their socks around. And this is not just your kid, it could be your spouse too. They're leaving dishes everywhere. They left a cup on the coffee table. So it's just like these little things that you would never do, but other people are doing it. And it could be very difficult to train your partner to do these things that you wanted to do, especially because they're their own individual and now they're coming into a shared space. For children, I can see it to be a little bit easier. You start them young. Hey, this is what we do. Versus now someone who's old, like they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Now you're having to combat someone else's energy. And it just doesn't have to be your partner. It could be your coworker. It could be your boss. It could be whoever. How do you share space with individuals that are not organized or that are just full of clutter?
Yeah, that's probably one of the biggest issues in most homes. You have one party that's ready to get organized and the other ones, especially if you have tons of kids, that they're really not interested. They're happy living in the mess, okay? They're happy with leaving their toys around. But one of the things I talk about a lot is getting buy-in from your people, your A, which I refer to. So your A team could be at work, your A team could be at home. It just varies where you're trying to create this new space, this new organized life. So getting buy-in, what that looks like is first you got to know, we got to be aware of where we're trying to go. And then we got to personally create a strategy and some sense of systems. Like we got to know kind of where we're headed and how we're going to get there. And then it's about having the conversations of, okay, you guys, this is how we've been living. This is what mommy wants. This is what daddy wants. This is what it's an office space. This is what I would like. And you have the conversation and ask, how can you help me with this? Right? Or you can tell them, you can help me with this by doing this. A lot of times when I'm working in a physical space, especially if the children are home, like especially like summertime, or if I'm working at someone's home during spring break and the kids are there, I'm getting them involved. Okay. They will be staring at you like, what is this lady doing in my house? Why is she touching my stuff? And they come, they get close and they start asking questions. Oh, you want to help? And I get them involved. The parents, 99% of the time, actually 100% of the time, I've never had a parent like say, no, don't get them involved. They're always willing to help. Now, it may not be all the children, but the ones that are intrigued by the process, getting them involved. Well, listen, Michael, kids are the best accountability partners. They will say, Mom, Mr. Takilla did not put that right there. Mr. Takilla didn't say do that. Mr. Takilla said, and so they will help you stay accountable to the process that you've created. Mom, I thought we were putting the chips right here. I don't remember having the chip. So, or they'll hold their siblings accountable. Tom, that doesn't go there, right? And so getting buy-in from the family, your A team is crucial and is necessary to maintain the success of creating the organized life. Putting those structures in place, having the children pack their lunch the night before, getting their clothes out the night before. When my children were younger, we got our clothes ready on Sunday for the entire week. There's no changing. This is what you're wearing. Now, if you snuck and changed, that's something different. But for the most part, you got your socks, your undies, your t-shirt, your shoe, basically wear the same shoes almost every day unless something was going on. But having that structure for your kids, making their life easier so that they can get up and feel successful and they won't have decision fatigue running around looking for shoes and all those things. So getting buy-in from your family is challenging, but very important, especially if you have a spouse that's not interested too. I've had a family, the spouse was not interested. He was like, basically told her, I think you should be able to do this by yourself. And then once we started working together, I guess it was like 2 or 3 sessions in, he was like, oh, okay. And then he was like, okay, well, when can we do my stuff? Right. So long story short, get the family involved, your A team involved as much as possible and be as consistent. You got to be consistent, which, it's a journey, right? You're going to fall off the wagon. I'll fall off the wagon depending on what goals or journey I'm on. Right. But how are you going to get back on the horse? Get back on and restructure, revisit it, see what was working, what wasn't working, and, continue the process as best as possible.
I was thinking about certain clients I have because certain clients say, I guess you could, diva is a good word for them, diva. So it's like they have everything for them. They can have their assistants do everything. They don't have to do much. They just have to show up most of the time. Mm-hmm. So they just expect everyone to do their part and then, of course, their part as well. So the person's part and the individual's part. So it's like maybe it's like the power of delegation there where someone says, well, I don't have to be organized because I have people that are being organized for me. So everything is organized because they're just in my vicinity. Would you say that there's a difference between delegating that where you're, for example, the work that you do, if you go into a household and you're keeping everything organized for someone so that they don't have to worry about it, is there a difference in the mindset if they do it versus if you do it?
Absolutely. When I do it, it's going to cost you more, right? So if I work solo, me and my team work solo, it's going to cost you more. You're not going to be really aware of where things are. I'm going to get a lot of texts of, hey, Takilla, where did you put this? Where did this go? And then if you get involved in the process, you start learning strategies and systems on how to create the organized life and create an organized space that you wouldn't have learned if I did it myself, if my team and I just did it. So when you actually get involved, it's that hands-on training. Okay, so I've had clients text me and say, my gosh, look what I did. They'll send me pictures of this new space they just created and get so excited because they are putting the tools to work that they've learned over time, right? So it's very important for you to get involved in your life, right? It's easy to be pretty. It's easy to be a diva. But what are you learning? What are you accomplishing really personally, right? Because I'm a student first. I like to learn. I don't really like people doing everything for me. And that could be because of the way I grew up and just having the hard knock life, right? And so I think it's very important for us to get involved. I mean, my children are very independent. Okay, they are 22 and 20. I mean, I had them cooking in high school, cooking dinner from the time they were in middle school. No, probably even earlier than that. Probably fourth, fifth grade. They were already doing laundry, right? They know how to separate clothes, put them in colors, whites, towels, arcs. Put them in a washing machine, put them in the dryer. Fortunately, my younger son, he actually did put clothes in the washer with the ones in the dryer because I didn't tell him specifically to take them out the dryer. I just said, put the clothes in the washer and the dryer. So that's what he did. But it was clothes already in the dryer. Nonetheless, he did what I asked him to do. But the point that I'm making is that when we learn that independence, especially at an early age, it really does build your self-esteem. My kids have a hard time asking for help because I made them so independent. And that's just something that we're working through now to combat that independentness, so to speak, to be able to ask for help. You don't have to do everything on your own. You may know how to do it a little bit, but if you're struggling, let's get some help. So I think, yeah, cool. You can have someone do everything for you, but there's some sense of achievement and joy in doing certain things for yourself.
Yeah, it's very similar to the idea of you hire a personal trainer or a bodybuilder to walk around with you. You say, you're going to go to the gym for me. And they walk around, they're looking all good. They got these six packs and nice biceps and everything. And you're just there, just as you were. And everyone might be complimenting this person. You're like, but I'm paying this person, right? To walk around and to go to the gym and to look the part. Sometimes we have to do the work. We have to look the part ourselves. We have to be the part. And when that happens, our whole entire demeanor is going to change. We're going to feel more confident. We're going to be more hungry and ambitious to the things that maybe we want to do in our life. Where sometimes people might say, I have 100 things to do. And we have to ask ourselves how many of those 100 things are really important. Because, yeah, sure, we understand you need food, but can you order a grocery app or something like that to get the food or something like that? And then you can do the work that you have to do. If you're in your office, for example, and it's a mess, maybe just say, hey, I'm going to spend the morning making sure my office is good. And maybe that's your whole day, right? Maybe that's the win for today. And the next day you're like, cool, I'm going to tackle all the emails that I have in my inbox. Great, right? It's our day too. And we start to do it. I think people, they think they have to do everything, right? They see their whole house is 2,500 square feet. And they're like, I have to clean 2,500 square feet, not 100 square feet. They say, I have to do the whole thing. And I remember early on, my wife, we know she has a problem already with clothes and stuff. She would have to have these big suit. No, she can listen to this. Okay. She can, she knows she has the issue. And we would do a lot of traveling, and she would always bring these big suitcases, and they were over 50 pounds and things like that. And that's like, you know, we're only going away for a week, right? And I got my little carry-on, right? And she got this check bag, 70 pounds. And I'm like, wait, what's in your bag? She goes, well, I have shoes for every occasion. She has dresses for all of these things. And I'm like, listen, let's try to shave off a little bit here. Okay. Do we need all these shoes? Do we need all these dresses? Like, let's be realistic for a minute. And we get it down to 50 pounds. And it was something I had to understand. I couldn't go cold turkey right away. So we would have to do the carry-ons or the check bags, where she would always make sure she got 50 pounds exactly. And then we started to do traveling abroad, and traveling abroad and having a check bag is
It's a nightmare. Yeah.
so I would say, listen, we need to only have check bags. That's like, heck, you can use some of my suitcase if you need to. And so she started to acclimate to not bringing as much. She still has a lot of stuff, but not as much. So she's starting to become better at traveling light. And I started to think of this idea of not like for her, but just in general, after our conversation or during our conversation, is how people would move from location to location. Before, we were settlers, and we would say, okay, we're going to stay here. This is going to be our home for all 4 seasons, depending on where you live. If you have all 4 seasons, and you're going to say, this is my home. Versus, all right, we're going to move with the buffalo. We're going to move with the season. So they were very nomadic, and they can only carry as much as they could carry. Yet now we can just have as much as we can place, or as much as our space can hold. And I say that because it's not even about the floor space. It could be about the stacking space, where people, they stack. And I started to think of this idea of, what if people started to become more nomadic, or they became movers, rather than just saying, okay, I'm going to plant my roots in this home for 30 years. What would it be like if I say, okay, I'm going to live here for 5 years. I'm going to live here for 4 years. I'm going to live here for 1 year, where they were more nomadic, where they would be more moving. Would you think that would solve the problems, or would it create an array of other problems that we can't foresee?
So if you think about the people in the military, they do that. So I have friends and family members that have lived in the military, not lived in the military, they have been in the military. So they lived abroad from different states to states, and they usually live a much more frugal lifestyle because they don't want to carry all of those things with them. And they see the benefits of living a simplistic life. If you think about the people that live in Asia, they have very little things in their house. Like, they have gadgets that serve more than one purpose, right? You don't need a toaster. You don't need a air fryer, oven. You don't need all of these things. What's the other one? It's a lot of different kitchen gadgets that can be brought down to one, if we were able to not desire the materialistic stuff. So I think moving a lot, it's a mental drain, physically draining. But if you had to move a lot, you probably would not be keeping a lot of stuff. Most people, when they get ready to move, they purge, even if it's not a lot. Like, I just relocated to another state. Every single time I moved, I got rid of some stuff. When I get ready to move my clients, we're packing them up. The first thing we do is purge. Let's get rid of some stuff that you haven't been using. And a lot of people that have moved, sometimes they still have boxes, especially when they have a lot of stuff. They have boxes that they haven't even looked at. Like, I just had a client last year. She had been living in the house for 8 years. We were unpacking those boxes that had been there for 8+ years, and probably even before she had moved to that house had not been looked at, because it's not stuff that you use. So it's hard, but we probably could have just threw that in the trash and you would have never knew, or missed the thing that was in there. But just for making sure they're comfortable, we're going to go through it. We're going to look at it. And most of the stuff we do get rid of it because they haven't been using it. So moving, I think, would actually help. But I think also moving is exhausting, especially when you're not a professional organizer like me, because I know how to move in an organized fashion. I literally plan it to the T. This last move, actually, my move got moved up a couple of days, which was threw a wrench in my plan because of the snow we've been getting on the East Coast and in the Midwest. So it just really threw a wrench in my plan. But it was still, for me, easier than probably most people.
Yeah, I think of how some items we can hold different levels of value to.
Yes.
Like, for example, we know that a can opener probably doesn't mean much to most people. But what if it was our grandfathers from World War One or something like that, right? It could mean something to someone where maybe we don't use it, but we hold it because of a sentimental value. You yourself are a parent. You know that when your kids were younger, they would come home with all of these papers and all these arts and crafts things and things like that, right? And it's so funny. I speak to clients as well. And some say, I still have all of the stuff from when they were kids and they have all of these drawings and things like that. And I don't do that. That's crazy to me. But there's certain things that I have found to be more practical. For example, my mom, she still has ornaments that she can put on the Christmas tree every Christmas that we made
Yes.
when we were in third grade and fourth grade, right? So those things are practical. Yeah, sure. We lost all the paintings and pictures we drew, but like that right there is enough. Where I think sometimes people, they hold value to everything rather than to certain things. How do you help people say, hey, this is sentimental. This is just you trying to be a hoarder?
Yeah. So let me just turn around and get so my son drew a painting a long time ago, and I have it now in a coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in a plate. So that's ways that you can actually create something practical from something that you actually hold dear. Now, I have very few of my kids' artwork. But what I do have is paintings like pictures like that on a plate, on a mug. You can also, like if your grandfather passed away, and of course you still have his clothes after he passes before you decide you can create a blanket, you can create a pillow with those things. So a lot of us, we kind of just let the stuff sit in a corner on the floor, or our granddad's stuff is inside the garage in a bag. You know, I had one client, she had 4 kids, I think. She had the biggest totes. You can see my hands, they're spread as wide. The biggest totes. Each child had a tote with paperwork. Her kids were gone and married. Gone and married. Okay. Now, I get why she kept it, but let your kids come over here, get out of here what they want. You can create, what are those, scrapbook? You can create a scrapbook with some of the favorites, but your kids probably don't want that stuff. My boys are not interested in, my mouse is one of my kids' pictures. The mouse pad that my mouse sits on, it's a picture from one of my kids. That's how I hold the memories instead of all of the stuff. Make it practical. But yeah, she has like 4 huge totes with just full of her kids' work and arts and crafts and stuff like that. And they're in her attic. It's very organized, but it's just taking up space. That allow your kids to come over, go through it, create a scrapbook from the things that you really want and get rid of the rest, because it's just really wasting space. It's unfortunate, but we can create memories with the things that we have left without losing our space, without losing our time, without losing our energy. And a lot of people don't actually value the stuff that their grandparents left them because you can tell how they treat it, where they store it, how they store it. If you really valued it, let's find a way to honor the item. Let's find a way to create memories, new memories with the item. But just sitting it in a garage and throwing it down, that doesn't work either. If you really value it, let's make sure we create a space for it. And then I want to just say this one other thing. A lot of times, because a lot of people have stuff and they're like, oh, it's worth a lot of money. I heard you mention this a second ago. I don't want to get rid of it. A lot of the value that we hold to the thing is actually not the value. It's way lower. And you got to make a decision, because trying to sell it, how much time, how much energy are you going to waste trying to sell the item, right? So the value that we hold to the item is not what it's actually worth to the world, to society. And you're going to waste a lot of time and energy on trying to sell it or do something with it. So it's best to just donate it and let somebody else enjoy it.
Yeah, it's the gift of giving, I think, as
Mm-hmm.
well, because the things that maybe were a part of your journey at once can now be a part of someone else's journey. I
Yeah.
think of the books that I had to partake in or use in college. As much as I can say, oh, these books are so important, they help me become who I am, maybe they can help someone else become who they're meant to be. And so to not be selfish with the gifts that I have been given and to say, hey, I'm going to pass this on to someone else. It's easy to give something to someone we love, I think, but it's more difficult to give something to a stranger. Just think about it. Like if you have a garage sale and someone walks in, they see something and they're, pick it up and put it down. Hey, do you want that? And don't worry about the price. Just take it. Most people don't do that. Where it's more of, okay, let's have a transaction. But if it's our kid, they ask for something. Oh yeah, sure, you can have that old thing. Like I have guitars, I have instruments, I have a lot of things. And if my son, he's still young right now. If he asks, hey dad, can I have your guitar? I'm going to say, sure. It's yours. It's yours. You don't have to ask for it. Because for me, as much as it was a part of my life at one point, it could be a part of his journey next. And if someone came in my house and said, hey, I want to buy that guitar and they give me crazy price for it, I'm not going to say no, it's for my son. I'm going to say, sure, you can have it because we
Yeah.
can always buy another. We can always buy another guitar.
Right.
Of course, I might think of the memories. I might think of the sentimental aspect to it. But to me, I think to relinquish or to give away has so much more power, right? To give our time to someone or something that is bigger than ourselves. Because if you think about it, what is legacy? What is our time on this planet? It's finite, right? Legacy can be a longer lasting bit, but most people, they just, get caught up. And as you said so beautifully, the things that we hold true today for ourselves, our great grandkids will not care about them, right? They have new gadgets, they have their own clutter, they have their own things to worry about. I think the only thing they might worry about is the videos that we've created and maybe the pictures that we have taken. And it's not even so much of like a picture of a tree, but a picture of the family. Like, especially like during times of, grieving, if you lose a loved one and you go back down memory lane and you look at grandma or grandpa, you're like, they look like this? Like, because
Right. Yeah.
in your mind, they always look just like grandma and grandpa, not their former selves. They all had a life before that. And I know sometimes people think that they have to carry their whole life forward with them at all given time. And I always say, well, is it quicker to move with a 100-pound rucksack on your back or a 15-pound backpack, right? 15-pound backpack is going to be a lot lighter. So it's going to help you move more freely. And if we think of that in the terms of mindset or in our mind, we have to be nimble. We have to be flexible to the point of what the world is. The world is going to dictate what it needs. Every year, there's always going to be a new phone. There's always going to be a new fashion trend. And of course, you can always say, I'm going to wait for the repeat cycle, right? When bell bottoms come back around, because they will. But it doesn't mean that you have to be waiting for them, right? You can just say, okay, I was living it. It was nice. I have my couple pairs of jeans that I need. As you said, the clothes were already prepared for the week. And it just helps with our thinking and our minds so much more. It just helps us release some of the tension that we have because it feels as if the world is always on us. Or most people like, oh man, I'm so worried about all this. I'm so stressed about this. I'm anxious about this. And I think being able to organize or to declutter can be a perfect first spot for many individuals who are struggling with progression in their life. As we begin to wrap up, Takilla, I would love to, get some final words, some final thoughts on what you would like to leave people. And then if you could, please tell people how they can reach out to you, find you, your social medias. I'm sure you have tips, tricks, hacks, all of those things that can help people stay in line, stay tuned. I think that would be a perfect place to begin.
So my biggest tip is to get your calendar, your schedule in order. Because if you decide to go on this journey of creating the organized life and getting your space organized, if you don't have your calendar and your schedule in order, if you're overbooking yourself, if you don't leave room for breaks, if you don't leave room for eating, you're going to be back where you started at the beginning, which is living a cluttered life. So that's my biggest tip. To create the organized life, it really does start with managing your time. In order to find me, I am on all social media platforms under my business name. It's Extreme Audacity without the E. So it's going to be XTRE Audacity, AUDACITY. That's actually my website, extremeaudacity.com. And I give out tons of tips and tricks. I also have a podcast called The Organized Life Podcast. It's been going great, very fun being in this podcast world. But that's basically how you can find me on all the social media platforms, or and my personal is Takilla Renee, which is fun also.
All right, perfect. I'm going to help out everyone who's listening. You don't have to worry about spelling. It's all right down below. So just click a link, find your favorite social media platform, check out her website, learn more about how you can begin to organize your life. I know it can seem like things just accumulate suddenly, but it takes time. Even when I move from my apartment to a home, and when I move from my home to another home, or maybe to an apartment, who knows what I want later on in life, I know that there's going to be a lot of decluttering in my life. And even for me, right? Like a mindset coach, like you should know better, right? You should do better. But it's not so much of knowing the part. It's about always making sure you're upkeeping the part, because we can all get busy with life. We can all get busy with what needs to be done on a day-to-day basis. And before you know it, the backlog can be very heavy. So ask yourself, when do you have to slow down? Maybe it's today, maybe it's tomorrow. But if you feel as if something is out of whack, out of line, and you feel like you can't move, I encourage you to reach out to Takilla, begin the organization process. And it's not going to just begin with your personal space, but also your mental space. So I do want to thank you, Takilla, for coming on, spending some time, and of course, talking about your work today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.